Okay, looking now at distribution. So this is the first of a set of slides. Second one is on retailing. So let's move forward. Now the problem with distribution is it can seem a bit dull and tedious compared to branding or advertising, etc. So, but it is important here now. The story here we know about KFC, so that's a link we'll see in the old Googly page. This one here is meant to be Soviet Russia, how Soviet Russia could make products, but distribution was a problem. Food would be rotted, because it couldn't get to the shops in time, and as a result, people would queue in the streets. They'd see a queue and join it and thinking, what are we queuing for? Because they knew it'd be something they need. It could be bread or milk or shoes, etc. So the shops were devoid of consumer goods. Of course, contrast that with our own situation, 24-hour retailing, that we could walk into an Asda 4 in the morning and expect to buy music, clothes, food, whatever we like, because that's just how how we operate these days. Of course, when they do have the delays in the distribution, we've seen it with the bad weather a few years ago when panic buying milk and bread, etc., because it couldn't get to the shops in time, and even the coronavirus with the toilet rolls being out and everything. So the system operates in a like just in time. It's highly tuned, and we're just so used to getting in and seeing things, expecting them to be there. So the KFC story here you can read about. That's why they they had problems because they changed their supplier. So other things about distribution, just one here, actually, the big issue, that's a distribution thing because they don't sell, you don't go into a supermarket or booksellers to buy the big issue. It's only available via their vendors. So how they distribute it is through their own unique bespoke system. So that's what sets the big issue apart from other magazines, and that's why it's been a major success over the last 20 odd years or so, but longer. Even things like Disney, like where the location of their parks are. And there's now one in Shanghai. They have one in, I think, Tokyo. In America, and even a lot of people think the Disneyland Paris one shouldn't have been in Paris at all. It should have been in Barcelona because the weather's not the best. So, but that's distribution, because where they choose to have their locations for their outlets. And even thing here, American football, you might have noticed, they play now some of these games in London. So, instead of having to play, in America, teams, they want to come over here because they go to Wembley or Tottenham Stadium or whatever, and they sell it out. And now they're looking for a London franchise. Now, it might not seem like distribution topic, but it is. It's how the NFL distributes its games and how it can build the brand name because they locate in the UK. Now, this is really the dark side of distribution. For example, the global arms trade, right? So, these are people protesting at arms dealers. Obviously, they keep it below the radar because it'll be a select people who would go there, governments, etc. But for all that, guns still end up in the arms of terrorists and criminals. Now that's not the intention of the manufacturers, but obviously there's an alternative routes to obtain these weapons here. Um, this one, very sadly, was depicting global human trafficking. So actually distributing human beings to go from one part of the world to another, and they have to pay the smugglers, etc., to get them there, and then they're probably exploited when they get here. But that's a distribution thing, and even the global drugs trade. So highly sophisticated, totally illegal, naturally, but how it gets drugs from Colombia and Afghanistan, it'll be complicated, it'll go through it, and of course, there are people who think the war in drugs doesn't work. Should we just make it legal? And in which case, would that make drugs cheaper? And that's a debate for another day, or a discussion for another day. But it's a highly efficient distribution system. You catch one dealer, someone else will appear in their place. Hey kids, don't do drugs. Except paracetamol, that's obviously okay. Um, Obviously, the channel decisions are linked to every other marketing decision made by the company. They don't just think, how will we distribute this product? Ah, who cares? They think about it for, obviously, for example, if the sales force, how much communications are needed. If you're going to buy, a loaf of bread, you don't need to get instructions from the retailer or a wholesaler how to use it, but something could be more complicated and might need, so you might need to train the retailers and the wholesalers to answer these questions, etc. in the first place. How much persuasion will be required, support, how much motivation to sell the product. Obviously each product has its own challenges. And if it's low price, then you're thinking, well, we need to keep the cost as low as possible. You could argue the big issue, for example, they want the money to end up in the hands of the vendors, the sellers, so they don't want to give a share of that to the to a retailer. So that's the thing there. So it's obviously price and the cost of getting the product to market is an issue. So, and it's about long term. This is the thing. You can change your advertising quickly, change your promotion quickly, you can change the price quickly. Yeah, even products maybe withdraw from the market, change the packaging. But distribution is long term, because you've got contracts, negotiations, you've got to build up the infrastructure here, and it doesn't change overnight, and that's why if anyone, Shopify, the online versions where people can bring retailers and, you can sell through them. That's a distribution channel that, worthwhile looking at. And that comes from Kotler, European edition. So, a channel of distribution, these are who's all involved in this, getting the flow of product from the consumer, product producer to consumer. The thing is this, it's about consumer satisfaction, right? Customer satisfaction. So it might not be apparent right away. You're thinking, surely that's to do with the product, etc. But no, it's what makes it easier for the customer. And it's summed up here, making products available at the right time when you need them, right? There's no use getting them to come in late, that could cause problems. The right place and the right quantity, right? So we don't want to buy 10 million, toilet rolls, or some people might. You just want enough to get you by, as it were. So this is what we're going to look at here. What this idea of right time, right place, and right quantity. So, functions of these marketing channels, well, we're going to look at this utilities, create utilities. This comes from Tim Simkin, but time, place utility, possession utility, we can all understand these ones. Well, actually, this possession utility is a bit dodgy, and forum, bespoke. So I'm going to give examples of this. So it's really time utility, when you want them, place, possession, that you might not want to own it, but it's there, it's an option, and forum. So let's look at examples over the page here. Right, the idea of time, like a vending machine is sometimes that, there's vending machines all over the place. I've seen them in work, etc. And I know that I can go and get, say, a Twirl bar in a supermarket cheaper, but that's maybe 20, 30 minutes away. Here's a machine, it's more expensive, but it's convenient for me right there, right now, etc. There's Irn-Bru there, so sometimes you might want to buy. You can buy Irn-Bru in 8 packs or any soft drinks, or 24, or even sometimes cases of 30 for Coca-Cola. You might not want that. Sometimes you just want one, right? So, but it's how it's presented to you. Rent a car. That's why you'll find these guys, at airports, etc. Because you come off. That's what it'll be. It's about renting it. And this is a bespoke one. The idea being for make it specially for you. And this is Gavin, incidentally, happy birthday, Gavin. If don't think we have any Gavins in the class, but if you know someone called Gavin, there's a cake waiting for him. So you can't just go in and buy that cake unless unless you scraped it off and just said happy birthday and then put in your own name, etc. But so it's bespoke, suits, etc. things for this. But that's the whole idea of utility. And this is one here with just about the vending machines. You know, you might remember the old chewing gum vending machines. Cigarettes, very popular. You know, people would buy in, particularly in pubs, cigarette machines here. This one is makeup. Um, which brand is it? Oh, I can't remember. But you know, so you make up from this, and even look at this one, whiskey, ice cold whiskey from a vending machine. Um, don't know what that one is up there. I'm not really sure. It's not chewing gum anyway, you know, I hope. Right, this is a standard diagram you see in all the books here. It's about efficiency for distribution. So you imagine this, there's a producer, right, making a product, um, and there's the buyer. So you imagine you have to, oh sorry, up here getting it wrong. So there's a producer. You imagine that you have to deal with every single buyer that you have out there. Right, now you might have, see, for if you only get 10 customers, that's fine. 100, okay, 1,000, getting a bit difficult. But when you start to get to 10,000, 100,000, a million, it becomes too much there, right? So that's why if you see here the complexity of all these lines in here between the producer and the buyer, look, it's far easier for you to sell to a few people, and it's their job. They take the skills to pass them on to other people, right? And one of the things way back in the first marketing slides lecture was about, oh, you know, retailing and marketing makes things expensive, but the wholesalers admit they make it cheaper, because you imagine all the paperwork, all the contract, when the firm says, look, here, um, we'll focus on making the product, and the middleman, or is that a bit sexist actually, the middle person, let's go for intermediary. The intermediary, they'll develop the skills, right? So it cuts it out, they focus on doing what they do best, these people here focus on this, and it goes to the buyers. So it's all about efficiency. And this is something else, you know, for the functions of the distributors, you know, these wholesalers. So you imagine this. Let's look at jeans, right? Now let's think about all the different colours of jeans there are, and the sizes, male and female, right? And then you've got, you know, not just the waist but the length, and then you've got the style, you know, and boot cut. There's one called Girlfriend, you know. I'm actually running out here because I only knew there was flared trousers and non-flared trousers. So there must be what are the combinations of all these things in here? You know, 5,000, etc. Well, what the retailer does, or the wholesaler, they sort them out, right? They get them into order, they allocate them, and they sort them. So the idea is the denim manufacturers, they'll make them, and it's as it filters through the distribution channel, that's what they do. They put them into groups, you know, straight leg, boot cut, knee jerk, etc. Get the stock of them, break them down so that when we walk in, you know, they're neatly arranged where we can see them as we want them. Of course, they won't have 10 million pairs because they're just neat, you know, there for you. And of course, what you might want to do is you utilize different channels of distribution. You know, for example, here, actually, this is meant to be Jo Malone, but it's Jo Loves. That was, I think Jo Malone lost the right to the name. She sold out. She started her own company. But say Jo Malone, they have their own shops, but they also have concessions within, you know, supermarkets, department stores. Magazines have got to they've got to tread a fine line, because what happens is sometimes they will sell direct, right? So they're subscribed to PC Gamer, you know, and it will be give you a saving, but they don't want to make it too cheap because they'll alienate the host, the news agents. The you imagine you saying, well, man, I'm trying to sell this magazine for £5, you're selling it direct for £2, you know, away you go. So they'll cut a deal, you know, be a bit of balance. They won't be too aggressive, but we use different channels here. Glasses as well. In fact, you know, I cannot remember why I have got this example in here at all. Totally gone from me. Totally and utterly gone from me. I'll come back to you, maybe. So let's just pretend I made a brilliant example in here. You thought, this guy knows it, he's absolutely fantastic. Let's just pretend that happened. I'm still thinking about those specs. It'll come to me. Anyway, let's look at distribution objectives. Now, I'll put them all up at once and hope that I don't flick the page because I can't remember how many. I think there's one after this, but let's hold on. Right. Appropriate and adequate distribution. That goes without saying. You need to get access to your market segments. So where are your customers, right? It's got to be cost effective, right? There's no use to, you think, what, that's going to double the price. You've got to look for the resellers, you know, the actual, are they putting an effort? And I've got an example, like guitars here, you know, like if you walk in and see your guitars up, you're, say that's your brand of guitars up the top one, and you know, you put in a mystery shopper to perceive what it's like, and the guys are just, yeah, away you go, just look yourself. You think, no, I want them to be putting in an effort here. What if the customer service isn't good? So you'll be looking at all these things that you know the people handling your products provide this, and it's about maximising revenue returns. Same goes in here for wedding dresses, you know, so many of them, you want it to be aggressive, you know, not aggressive, but, you know, another word for aggressive? No, it's gone, I'm having a great day here, but, you know, passionate maybe, that's a good word about selling your products. When I look at this, I remember the programme Say Yes to the Dress. Have you ever, honestly, and this is for the guys out there, although I might be being sexist again, but watch it because you see the effort they put in about how the different. I'd have thought a wedding dress is just just a white dress, but my goodness, Randy knows his dresses. Let's see if anything else comes up here. No, nothing did come up in that last slide. So what the intermediaries do, right? So when you pass your product into them, the wholesalers, the retailers, well, they bring buyers and sellers together. That's what they do, right? You go, that guitar shop, the wedding dress shop, you go in there, it brings you together. Range of products, and it encourages a favourable attitude. Now think about this, how do they do it? What do shops do that you think, you know, that's actually quite good? It could be the layout, it could be a coffee place, it could be toilets, it could be pleasant staff, all these things here, easy return. Look, this one here, no quibble returns, right? They give advice and repairs, you know, they help you. So yeah, no problem. So they make it easier for you to buy the product. And also, because I forgot this was here, undertake promotional activities. You know, you work with them, cooperative advertising, cooperative promotion, work together to sell the product. Now, this is just one here. This is just really the types of channels. Now, here's the most obvious one, a direct channel, right? Straight from the consumer, the producer to the consumers. Dell computers used to be like this, okay? You know, direct from the factory straight to you. No, nothing in between. And we see a lot more of this with the online stuff. Most products are really either B or C here, where we have a retailer in there. Now, the retailers, if we look at C, there used to be more wholesalers, but the retailers basically take on these duties themselves. So the producer sells to the retailer, sell to the consumers. But some products might be more complicated when you've got agents in the way, or brokers, right? So, and wholesalers. So sometimes a product, we can get a product that's direct from the manufacturer. Other times it can be through maybe 4 or 5 different owners along the way here. And that's particularly true in some markets are more complicated than others. And this is just to show you we're not forgetting business to business. The same thing, you know, sometimes it's direct, sometimes you've got distributors, sometimes there's agents, you know, an agent who'll go out and they won't own the products, but they will go, you know, on your behalf, maybe in another country, representing you, taking a commission here, and then get you deal with them once you buy it. And so other times it could be a combination for this. And if you think about, we mentioned earlier, the arms trade. You know, sometimes governments they don't want to be seen to be arming the rebels in a certain area, but there'll be people who will facilitate moving the guns or whatever through shady channels to get there. Now, this is a term which is sort of, you know, quite important in distribution, disintermediation, right? And it just means really, in fact, if I'd gone back to that last channel, it's when you eliminate an entire level. You know, for example, it used to be in, was going to say old days, but booking a flight, you would go into a travel agent, but now you do it direct, right? So what did the Ryanairs and the EasyJets? They took out those intermediaries, disintermediation. You go online, you buy the flight straight from them, whereas Booking.com are an intermediary. They're just a different version of the the travel agents. So listen, that's why Thomas Cook, no longer. Well, I think someone's bought them over, but I think the travel world has struggled a lot from the new technology. But so disintermediation is when you just take someone out and you think, yeah, let's cut them out. In the grocery world, the wholesalers have, a lot of them have struggled, and it's why you now supply the supermarkets directly. Yeah, this stuff's all dealt with in the book. There's still a quiz available on Moodle. You nip over there, and I still advise you to get through them. But it's different types of intermediaries. I put up here Jerry Maguire, because Jerry Maguire is a sports agent, right? And in the sporting world, you sometimes have agents who represent either the club who are looking to buy a player. They'll sometimes go to an agency, find us a player, or an agent to sell the player, right? So sometimes you'll have an agent going around different clubs telling them about this, So these are we don't need to get into the depth of this, but it's a whole world out there. But of course, distributors, franchises as well, like Subway, and wholesalers. That's meant to be a wholesaler in here. Costco is a sort of halfway house. It's like a wholesalers, but members of the public can join as well. Now this one here, this is behind the scene. This is a channel integration, right? And again, it's where, remember way back in, it's instead of seeing these people as adversaries, all the different channel members, you're ultimately saying this, right? Here's a conventional marketing channel, right? So you've got a producer, and look what they do. They design, they make, the brand, right? They do all the stuff. So it goes to the wholesaler. They buy, stock, promote, display, and they might sell to a retailer who blah, 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 and it comes to the consumer. Now, through all of this will be negotiations about price and delivery, etc. And then somewhere along the line, you think, no, wait a minute, none of us make money unless the consumer buys it. So really, we're all on the same team here. So with a vertical marketing channel, what you have is this. There's a producer, there's a wholesaler, and there's a retailer who are working out together, right? The design, the make, the brand, promote, etc. here, even delivery and finance. So they're working together. And when you think of Marks and Spencers, they own a lot. Well, they don't own. They've got a lot of factories making food for them, but they're not their adversary. They work with them. So the idea is, they say, right, how can we get a food that can cook at this temperature and fit in with this? They work together. In fact, sometimes they will have no other customer apart from Marks and Spencers. Of course, that worked very well. They had it for clothes as well, but then Marks and Spencers decided they couldn't afford to buy in the clothes from the UK. It was just too expensive. So they ended up ditching their supply. They said to them, right, after this contract's up, no more. And these guys were left high and dry to buy in. They're now doing the same thing, working with partners abroad. In fact, even when you see in Marks and Spencers, in fact, even a lot of retailers now, they stress the farmer's role, about maybe the ethical side of it, or etc., and how animal welfare. These things are becoming more important. So channel integration, we don't see this much, but it's on behind the scenes. Now this here we're looking at, when you're selecting your market coverage. So it's basically this: how many shops do you want to be in? Say you're a consumer good. And let's take perfume. Now, intensive is, you don't care. You want to be in as many places as possible. You think about like Coca-Cola, Irn-Bru, they don't care, or chocolate, they don't care who's buying a product. You buying it, yeah, fine, that's fine. It's intensive, so you want your product to be in as many places as possible, even the vending machines. And for some, I would argue maybe that some perfumes, maybe Semichem or the perfume shop, maybe they're not as fussy. Maybe they think, yeah, we can sell that. There's Britney Spears. Apologies if you're wearing Britney Spears perfume just now, but they would stock it and think, yeah, that's good. Other brands would be more selective, right? So what they would say is, actually, no, we don't want to be in Semi-Ken. We don't want to be in Superdrug, but we'll be in Boots, right? So you select Boots or other people who meet your threshold, right? From this. So, and then the third one here is exclusive, and that's like Harrods. So what you say is, no, there'll be one store selling our product, and it'll be Harrods, the whole of the UK. If you want this product, you've got to go there. Car dealerships work along this way when you think about it. They might have, you know, you say, right, you're the Rolls Royce seller for Scotland, exclusive rights to this. So this is where and this ties in with the brand, this ties in with your objectives. So sometimes, yeah, you want to be intensive, other times selective, and in some cases exclusive, especially in the luxury brand market. Now, this is a wee exercise which I'm going to try and turn into an exercise on the googly stuff, and it's here. So let's say you're an Italian manufacturer of sports clothing, right? And you're entering the UK market. So you know that it's long term, so you're going to sign deals, but what if you end up with someone who's rubbish, right? So let's imagine I am the Italian clothing company, and let's say we're sort of, fairly good brand, etc., good quality. Um, and you come up to me and say, oh yeah, I'd love to stock your product, right? Now, what questions would I ask of you, right? What questions would I say? And one might be, how many outlets do you have? And you could say, oh, I've got a stall down at the Barras, it's really good, I'm expanding there. So you'd think, no. So how many outlets is the question? And I'm going to ask, well, what are the other questions you might ask? Okay, what other things would be a criteria for you to select someone else? So think about that. Now this one here is in channel conflict, and it's on the googly stuff, and this is what happens when you have a disagreement. Now, the example is, we'll be using this for years, is when Tesco had a disagreement with Unilever, who owned Marmite. Long story short, Unilever wanted to increase the price. Tesco, who were headed up by someone who used to work for Unilever, they said, no, we're going to delist all of the Unilever products, right? Which was never going to happen. And so, but it made the news because people thought, they called it the Marmite Wars. And thought, oh my goodness me. So read that up. This is what happens. Sometimes it could get serious and you could end up in court. Now this is one here, it's in the news. Rangers fans have had a problem with what's her name, JJB, Sports Direct, sorry, Sports Direct, yes, which is listed there, because of the way the deal was structured, and they were boycotting Sports Direct. They didn't want to buy from it, and that's what can happen. You can alienate, people. You can even alienate the company. In fact, Rangers and Sports Direct have been in court, and I think it's still ongoing. And this is what can happen. So you don't want conflict, but you don't want legal issues either. But that's all down to the contract you sign. So that's why you need the lawyers on board. And this is just really legal issues here that might come up as about restricted sales territories. You might be saying to someone, no, you cannot sell, this is your area. Or it could be saying, no, if you buy this, you must buy the full range, and sometimes pubs at one point used to have it, that they would say, no, it was a tied house, you must buy all our beers. Now it's less so, but it's still an issue. So that could be a complicated thing. Exclusive dealing, where they say, no, you're not even allowed to take a rival's products here. So, and if you found them, I think there was one case where a brewer who owned a pub, found that they were selling their rivals beer, which they weren't really happy with. And is there something else here? The tension is mounting. Oh yeah, refusal to deal, whereby the company might say no, we are not supplying to you, and that can some countries across the world you're not allowed to do that. If you sell to one company at this price, you must sell to someone else. So, but that's a legal thing, so we don't want to get involved with that too much. And this is, this is again something we don't think about, but it's the physical distribution actually moving them across, and I cannot remember the source of this, but it's like accounts for 48% of total distribution costs. Now, the logistics is in fact we have a master's in logistics, which is very popular, but in some cases, getting a product, it could be road, rail, air, ship. At one point, canals in the UK were the main method of distributing products inland, and this, from horse and cart, etc. In fact, just what's come into my head this very second is the Irn-Bru speaker was in once, and he was saying they were looking at their distribution network, where they had warehouses set up, etc. And what they realised was the reason why they were in such locations was that's how long it took a horse and cart to get there and back within a day. So they then, it was just historical, and they realised that was what it's for. Now, when you're looking at the criteria, you're looking at the costs, obviously, the transit time, how long it takes. Obviously, air is more expensive, but it's quick. Reliability, in fact, with the whole Brexit thing and the ports, this is, you don't want your products stuck in long queues, etc. Capability, so for example, wine, which has to be taken in a certain way, and hasn't can be, anything could affect the taste of it. Accessibility, getting to it. The security is very important. So many thefts these days, and traceability. So they like to track these things so that they know they're going from one country where they are. Now, some things here. The containerization in ships transformed the docks. Instead of locating each products that were on these containers, that made it cheaper all over the world. Here, I saw this in Spain, and it was cars getting delivered by train. We always see them in car transporters, and for me, this was really exciting, but I am sad and pathetic. But so, and I don't know why, that maybe it's more common there. And even a thing like trucks. Now in America, the trucks are bigger, so they can carry more, so it leads to lower costs. And a lot of companies, they say we want to have bigger trucks, but other people are saying no, pollution will damage the roads. So these are things here, and this is why things like transport and traffic jams, it delays products, makes it more expensive. But it's more of a specialist area elsewhere, but just think about it. So nearly there, two slides to go. Right, so what are the trends here? Well, disintermediation, closer working relationships. So you're working not just adversarial, working together. Getting the intermediaries to do more duties. I say, well, why don't you promote it? Why don't you deal with the customer care? Sharing information, marketing research, this is critical, because like Tesco with their club card, they gained all this information that the manufacturers didn't know about, so they buy it off them. But now they're saying, yeah, so when do people buy our products? Often they did not know. And as we'll see in the next set of slides, the retailers becoming more powerful than the brand owners. So to sum up and to rescue you from boredom here, this is just sum up. So distribution, as I think I've proved in these slides, yeah, it can be perceived as being dull, but it is related to the branding, the promotion, the pricing, new product development, critical importance. Products, you've got to be on the shelf before customers can buy them. What do? You walk into a shop, you look for a product, it's not there, you buy the rival product, okay? And if you look at the distribution quotes that we've got, the wee musical one, which I selected, if you can hear it, with a little help from my friends. That's what, the idea of distribution, you need help. Conflict, cooperation and costs are important, all the C's, the alliteration. And distribution, yeah, it's critical for marketing success. Thanks for listening.